Okay. Good evening, and welcome to the June 4th school board meeting. Who is introducing our pledgers?
Oh, where is she? Oh, you're right there. Mrs. Titus.
Mrs. Titus.
Yes,
Oh, I am.
you are. I was told you were here to introduce our pledgers.
I thought Mr. Safina was. I'm sorry. It's okay.
I'm glad you're here
Yes, I'm
to
glad
introduce
you're
our
here.
pledgers. Welcome. Now you're all red. I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
Let's go over the summer for this weekend. Because I know I'm being streamed. I am here to introduce part of Team Barrington. These are our middle schoolers who've stepped up to volunteer as partners with our team, which means they spent the last few months working with them and helping them and doing every little thing we asked them to do. For some of our partners, they worked very intensely with them, like say a student who doesn't walk very much, so she does an event with support, and one of our partners was walking with her in the race. And the others pretty much were assigned to wherever they could go and help herd the cats that are our team. And they were just amazing. If I can have them come up here.
She's going to introduce each one of you.
Yes, I am. Come on. If I have to be on camera. So
Mrs. Titus has to do it, so do you.
Exactly. We have Emma Egan, Rain Webster, Alana Farrar, Danielle Bouchard, Nellie Addig. Sorry. I've only had her all year and still.
It's a tough one.
But they have been amazing. They stepped up and volunteered. They didn't know what they were volunteering for. And I'm like, you're going to be a buddy. You're going to run around. You're going to just do lots of little things. And they were amazing. Some of them were part of our relay team. And we had 3 relay teams in one of the heats. And we came in first, third, and fourth. We did an amazing job. And these girls were huge credit to it. So that's what I have to say.
So would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, thank you for helping your peers and participating. Being such good ambassadors for our town. I love following it on Facebook this weekend. So we have just a little thank you pin. Thank you.
Don't all wear them on the same day.
It's tie-dye day today. We all wear our shirts.
And we always like to acknowledge siblings too.
Nick's down there.
I know. It's not a lottery ticket, but. But again, thank you for helping your peers and for being such great sports and for stepping up, volunteering.
Now you can sit back down or leave. File out appropriately.
Thank you.
I promised them ice cream after the pledge, so.
Oh, all right.
Keep your promises. Nice.
So approval of the agenda. We have a couple changes we need to make. Anyone want to make that motion?
Sure, I make a motion to flip resignations first before nominations, and then also to remove non-public.
I would second that.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so approval of minutes. Can we separate out the May 23rd?
Motion to separate May 23rd, school board workshop executive session minutes.
Wait, are we, what do you?
So are you
We
making a
don't need to
motion to
set-
approve?
Oh, we don't?
No, we don't need to
Oh,
make a
I'm
motion to a
sorry.
separate,
My
to separate, but
apologies.
we're gonna do them in independent.
Yep, I got you. My apologies.
No, it's fine.
So I'd make a motion to, do we want to do them all separately? Is that what you were
No,
looking-
just that, I
Okay.
just can't vote on the 23rd. I think
All right.
it'll be easier to be
So-
represented if we,
Yep, I make a motion to accept all the minutes shown on the agenda except for May 23rd.
so that would be the May 20th workshop minutes,
Yep.
the May 21st public minutes, and May 21st non-public minutes. Okay.
Second.
You can pick that, Draw.
Carrie wins.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Then I'll make a motion to approve the May 23rd school board workshop executive session minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
One abstention? Sorry, strep got the better of me.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Katie just had it too. We'll call her out at the same time.
Okay, so this is our first opportunity for public comment. Anyone online? No? Okay. Dan, do you want to speak in public comment or just wait till your own session?
Just next.
All right, which is now. Select board update. It's a long wait.
Ready, go.
Yeah, because it's especially easy. We haven't had a select board meeting since the last time I spoke with you. A couple of things did happen, though, that may be of interest and importance. Rick Campbell was sworn in as the deputy police chief. He's a longtime Barrington. His uncle was the first uniformed policeman in Barrington. He's related to the Swains and has been here forever. The other thing that is kind of interesting is that Congressman Pappas has submitted part of an omnibus spending bill, for something like $3 million for a community center, which would certainly move that right along. Obviously, we haven't gotten that yet. It's a long way to go, but it's something to be of interest and will be very important. The TIF district committee did meet. They're organized. I think we'll change the name to the town center committee just to make it a little broader. They just kind of organized themselves. Nothing much came of that yet. So just kind of keeping you up to date. Any questions of me?
Anyone? No? All right.
Very good.
Thank you, Dan.
We're meeting Monday. Just if all of you want to come, it'd be lots of fun. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
It's a busy time of year.
I would tell you, in our summer, we only meet once a month during the summer.
Same.
It's our slack season, it's your busy season, so we'll,
Not from a school board meeting
It's
perspective.
yeah, okay. So
admin busy season?
Yeah.
please come join us. Come, all of you, come on. We'll have lots of fun. We'll have lots of
Monday
fun.
evening.
Thanks,
All right,
Dan.
thank you. All right, so resignations.
Unfortunately, we do have a few, I should say now, resignations. So Miss Erica Hill, elementary school teacher, Miss Elizabeth Reed, math teacher at the middle school. We know that's a critical shortage area and has been for multiple years, and we have struggled to hire math teachers. And then one that we just received yesterday, Miss Emily Miller, speech pathologist, also a really critical area of shortage and need. So those are my unfortunate for the evening.
Make a motion, we accept the resignations with regret.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you for your time in Barrington.
So on a more positive note, I do have a nomination to replace one of those resignations for this evening. Miss Maddie Ryan will step into BES at this point, what we anticipate as a second grade position, but we all know that things can change as student need and other possible changes may occur. We'll leave it that. You never know. So that is the nomination for this evening.
Motion to approve Maddie Ryan for second grade as of right now.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Welcome to Barrington, Maddie.
Deanna, when you, with the resignations, do you typically get the opportunity to do an exit interview with them?
Thank you for saying that. I was actually going to slip that in. I just had Christine start to make all of those appointments. So I do meet with everybody who goes for just, I mean,
Yeah.
usually we know the reason
Yeah.
because they share that in their letter or in person. But I started, I mean, it's been done in Barrington a long time. I didn't start that process, but I continued that last year and I started a document. So I'm going to ask the same questions this year so
Yep.
we have consistent information. And it's always, good to hear, what was celebrated, what was maybe a challenge for them, and things that we can do better or differently. So.
Especially if you start to see a pattern of
Absolutely.
something.
Yeah, and so if I do see anything like that from last
Absolutely.
year's conversations to this year, we can follow up on that.
Perfect.
So, yes, thank you for that. Perfect.
Thank you. So that brings us to draft of the superintendent goals.
Yes, so it was hard to narrow it down and to be able to really separate out, what is your day-to-day job and operations of the district expected under the role and the responsibilities, and then those things that, you additionally want to either revamp or, take a little tighter look at outside of those day-to-day operations. So I looked at the 5 overarching areas through the evaluation supervision process that we just adopted through policy recommended by NHSBA, and then the initiatives that we have going, and took a stab at the draft goals and just look forward to the feedback from all of you. So the first area, fiscal management, to me it made perfect sense since we are starting the town collaboration committee to have that be the focus area there, given that the budget and a responsible budget is part of my job. Like, that's something additional and important to the taxpayers in the community. So that is the goal under that area, with the objectives being all those little things that will help support to make that a successful collaboration, like obviously attending the meetings and carrying out the conversations with the town manager and things of that nature. So those were, they're not, under that one, they're not really, they're less objectives that they are like, here's what I'm going to do to participate in that process. Some goals lend themselves to easily observable objectives and others just don't. So if anybody has any feedback and I'll write those differently, please chime in. So under curriculum, delivery of instruction and pupil achievement, we know that, great teachers support great students, and we need great teachers to have great professional development. So we just looked at we just redid our professional growth plan, submitted it to the state last year. It was approved. So it is in its infancy, year 1 stage, where it has taken a significant shift from looking at student achievement to looking at educator achievement, like really the growth and development of teachers. So we need to continue to make sure staff understands that shift, and then what administration's role and responsibility is in supporting that shift. In addition to the growth plan, we also are looking at our teacher evaluation process as part of that. So shifting from a Danielson domain evaluation rubric process to Marshall, which of course creates a learning curve for administration and teachers alike. So administration will be trained over that over the summer. And then Performance Matters will be an add-on to our Power School system, so that now all of our data will slowly start to be in one system, so that some of those human resources processes that we're still doing on paper can start to get into a system to be more time efficient and effective. And then, of course, with those 2 things being focused on, we would like to then see student achievement improve as a result of teacher instructional improvement. So in order to track that, we will be looking at iReady, as we always do, and then also the addition of Acadience as part of the science of reading and the dyslexia law to further drill down and refine what students need in a Tier 2 and Tier 3 process. So it's hard to write one goal for curriculum instruction and assessment, but I feel like those objectives all lend toward the same end product that, of course, we're looking for, which is student academic growth. Relationship with the school board is the next area. I added community in parentheses. If you all would rather it didn't, I can certainly take it off. It's just that we do so much and we want to continue. And some of the community connection was improvements in the area of communication. So I thought I would throw it on there. So enhancing district relationships with the board and the community through clear and transparent communications and policies. So continuing our full policy review. We've marched through a few of the folders. We have quite a few to still go through. And yes, that's part of what I do, but to do a full policy review is a lot. So I thought it warranted being recognized on the goal somewhere. And then starting to provide those, like I shared, the new structure for superintendent report at board meetings and doing the same structure for all administration at the SAU and the building level, so that you'll just get on this regular routine of feedback loop from what's going on across the district. And then we had worked on a communication grid, kind of like part of COVID, and then it solidified itself when COVID was done. And so we've been able to maintain those criteria that we set, and I think it's time to go back and beef those up a little bit and start to look at how we can take, for example, the district communications and then pull pieces out of that that are worthy of repeating in the building newsletters, and just to have it be as streamlined, clear, transparent, concise as we can be. So that communication grid needs to be looked at again. Administration of school facilities is the fourth goal area. Again, that's such a huge topic, but I think what we keep talking about in the last year plus is the growth. And so continuing to monitor the demographic study, what we're actually seeing in town as a result of those predictions, and then creating a long-term plan for, obviously in conjunction with Joe, for each of the 4 buildings, to look at things like, okay, the middle school is over 20 years old now. We have some of those bigger projects in the warrant article, the capital reserves that we're planning for, but there are some other things that we're starting to see that we just need that longer-term plan so that we can predict those items. So doing a plan for each of the buildings, and then continuing to work with an architectural firm to get a variety of ideas on how to expand elementary school if and when that comes to fruition. And then the timeline process needs for the bond process, as well as if there's going to be, I should add that, building aid available, because that is coming back around. I'm going to add building aid to that line if people are okay with that, because as part of the bond process, that should be addressed as well. And then personnel. When I first came to Barrington, I know that some of the work of the superintendent and the administrative team at that time was to look at sort of all the human resources processes and practices, hiring, the paperwork, the flow of who comes in, who comes out. There's also not descriptions for our stipended processes, so there was a lot of work done on job descriptions for, say, certified staff, but then we have quite a few stipended positions that we put out a decent chunk of money for, that when you apply for that position, you really should have a paragraph explaining what it entails and what the time commitment is going to be, so that we can also then take the time commitment and attach it to, if you're supposed to have 20 practices per se and you cancel a bunch, should your stipend then be prorated because you haven't done what you set out to do, And this was actually a concern that came forward from a lot of the teachers and union as well, like, hey, there's times where we're sitting on a committee, say there's 15 people in the room, and I show up to every single meeting, but my colleague, and there may be good reasons for the absences, right, don't attend so many. So we're starting to put language in some of those agreements that, 12 meetings of a 1 hour in length are expected. If you miss 2 meetings or more, then your stipend may be adjusted by this much per day. So just trying to make sure that everybody's putting forth a fair, equal amount of time, energy, product. And that's been very well received because it's fair, right? So I want to go back, look at job descriptions. We've also added quite a few positions in the last 10 years, so making sure that we have accurate job descriptions to those new positions, have those positions morphed and they need to be refined, and then going back and looking at process paperwork and getting it in, hopefully, to this, a software platform system and not having all this extraneous paperwork. So that's going to be a lot.
The other thing, by having a paragraph or job description for the stipends, it allows you to look at them and go, ooh, boy, we're not paying very much money
Yes.
for all the work they're doing here, because well, you just all of a sudden don't realize that, hey, they're doing all this stuff, and
Yep,
so it might,
absolutely.
it could work the other way, too.
Agreed. And the group did do that a good chunk of years ago that now. We've been lucky in that we've had some consistent people on that committee. Vicky's been on that committee for years. Bob Benencosta's been on it. So they did recalibrate a bit ago because they were discovering, you know, some sports seasons are longer than others, and they were trying to make sure the compensation was fair. So it's hard to pinpoint how much time people spend on certain things,
Right.
but we do the best we can.
And when you mentioned the software, you mentioned at a highlight, obviously it's a highlight, you didn't need to go into detail, but software, I'm assuming that anything above and beyond what we're doing, which I know isn't necessarily technologically advanced, like current, would involve taking a look at some pricing. But I do think that that's important because I want to, and I think all of us would agree that it should not be we want it to be easy for qualified professionals to apply in a way that is technologically current. And I know that that will mean like website integration or some sort of a software licensing. But I think that even though there's that cost, I think that considering the environment of education, I do not want the application process to be a barrier to that, even though there's an associated cost. So something that I encourage us to look into as an investment.
Yeah, also, there's accessibility requirements, new RSAs coming with website use that are pretty intense.
Yeah.
And that are happening pretty
Very
quickly.
rapidly.
So if we're going to have to do a major overhaul with our tech department of 2, we might need some outside consultation to get that up to speed where it needs to be.
Plus with all the
So-
legal requirements for secure, like where you secure those digital files and all that stuff, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
For sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, all right. Anything as of this minute you'd like me to add, edit, get rid of?
No?
No, thank you for putting this together.
Sure. You want to wait until like another meeting to approve them moving forward? Are you good? How are we feeling? Want to chew on them a little?
I think
You
maybe,
can wait and do them in July. It's not like, I'm gonna
Yeah,
stop
why don't we
working.
finalize them in July?
Yeah,
Because that's actually
absolutely.
the start of the new year, right?
Works for
I
me.
agree.
Bring back in July. It'll give us some time too to, not that we would necessarily rapidly change them, but as we talk through goals for next year and workshop through, the summer and academic achievement data, there may be things we want to adjust, so.
Well, anyway, something that would be great for us to do as we're doing these not new initiatives, but I think these are, to be clear for the recording, for people watching currently, these are all actions that we've done and discussed and planned, but what I feel like we're doing more, and anyone can interrupt to correct me if I'm wrong, but we're really just formalizing and making that process a lot more transparent. And so as the board is doing this too, I would love to see us all work on making, the school board prior focus area document, the excellent guiding coalition 5-year goals document. This document look consistent. Have ways that we're tying into each other, like how everything's connecting, so that it's simple for someone who is not involved in education and hasn't watched all these meetings to digest, and something that could be more outfacing for the community where they might not need to. Obviously they'll have access to, but if you're just looking to answer some questions, we should figure out a way to make it easy and accessible for like internet viewing rather than, you know what I mean, like 7 pages of documents, but something more condensed so that it's more understood.
Like a snapshot with the overarching goals versus the 4-page document that's going to have all the objectives and the steps on how you're getting there.
Right.
Yeah.
So just something to think about
And to
as we
see
go
the
forward.
connectivity from the mission, the vision, the 5, but we all were marching in the same direction.
Yes,
We should be able to thread that through and see the connection. All right. right. So unless somebody has burning things that need to be voted on in June, I am like hard pressed to come up with an agenda for 2 weeks from now, which I guess is a good thing. But a lot of the focus, as you know, in June is just all on student transition activities and celebrations, et cetera.
My only question for that I had briefly discussed with Maura before the meeting was that as I just mentioned, that the board is establishing their 24 to 25 focus areas. We still all as a group need to come together to discuss that, and I really wanted to do that for the leadership team and for the purpose of our retreat so that it goes well before. I wanted us to be able to do that before the meeting, so I didn't know if we could brainstorm about, it doesn't necessarily need to be here, you and Moira can discuss just how that would happen so that everybody's voices get included in that document, but that we're not violating any rules of how we communicate digitally. I don't know how.
Well, do you want another executive session to finalize on that night as opposed to a regular board meeting?
Yeah,
Like
that's-
keep the meeting and just,
Will you have strep then?
I hope not, no. But that is my birthday.
pick a different night? I mean.
And I mean,
So how about we, for this moment, we can cancel the regular school board meeting. I can't make this proposal, but this is what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
suggesting. That we cancel the June 18th board meeting, and then we can collectively take a look at the document. If there's more input or changes to the document that we feel like we need to come together as 5 to discuss,
Okay.
then we'll set a date and time. We can set through text, because we're just setting a date and time that will get announced. So
Right.
we're not
Okay.
violating anything there.
Right.
And so if we need to meet, we'll meet, and if we don't need to meet, then,
Yeah, easy enough for us to post and schedule. You just need
Yeah.
2 days' notice to throw up a meeting. So
Yeah.
if you all feel like you need to post, we'll post.
okay.
And then just some
someone want to
additional.
formally make that motion, though?
So
Oh,
moved.
right.
So moved.
And I'll second.
Thank you.
As I was doing some additional thinking about the workshop session and how to kind of structure the evening and the information that we want to share, next year's an interesting year from a budgetary perspective. We have some big things. Like the operating budget, if we, set aside inflation and regular supply increases and stuff, the team and I have already talked about, we're going to have to be pretty conservative, right? We've had a couple years of asking for a lot in the town. But also, in addition to that, we have, a teacher contract negotiation, transportation contract negotiation, the 2 high schools, those are a lot of big separate items that I feel like we're going to have to do, not that we don't always, but they're all happening at the same time. We're going to really have to educate people about what those all mean, because if something doesn't pass for one reason or another, there's implications to those. Like you mentioned at the high school choice forum, we have to educate the 400 and X number of high schoolers, right? So I feel like there's a lot of big things to really put a lot of attention
There'll
and
be a lot of
conversation
warrant
on.
articles.
It's a lot of hours, and it's a lot of important decisions. So that just sort of, and our English language arts curriculum cycle is up, right? So you start looking at a curriculum in ELA, we know what curriculums in math have cost us in the past. We were lucky that we had ESSER funds left for this reboot. You're talking anywhere from $200,000 to $300,000 for a curriculum overhaul. And when we did it 8 years ago, we did it in 2 years because the financial burden was just too great. So I think we have some pretty big decisions ahead of us, financially and otherwise.
And ironically, the number of people that have complained because it's tax bill season.
Yeah.
And they're complaining about it, and what they're not even realizing is that what they voted on in March is going to
Isn't
hit their
hit.
November tax bill. It's not.
It hasn't hit yet.
It hasn't hit yet, and people don't realize that.
Well, some people do now. But you're right, that's a really good point, because nobody's feeling it now, but we are going to feel it right smack in the middle of the budget process. And I just feel like we have to take each of those things very separately and very carefully and communicate them the best that we can.
You're right,
They're
and
big.
education will be a big deal
Yeah.
to get out to the people the importance of the decisions that we need them to make, and making sure that they understand the ramifications of if you support this, or if you don't, the effect it will have on the education of the kids.
And we might have to think outside the box of how we typically communicate, because we know we don't
Right.
reach the greater audience of the town. And thankfully, for a number of years, they've been supportive, but we want to make sure when we're sending forth 4 or 5 warrant articles, which we don't normally do,
Don't normally do.
we have to explain. like, this test.
And we've had some nice little, little inroads, progress with communication this year with the connection with the Chamber of Commerce. And having some additional things posted on the town site, they're always willing to do that. So what I'm starting to hear some feedback that messaging is reaching some people that hasn't reached them before. Like scholarships, all of the different scholarship groups this year are thrilled because they actually got applicants this year. Like Barrington families don't realize there's so many scholarships out there and kids don't complete the process. But consistently, I've heard from every group this year how excited they were that they actually had a healthier applicant pool for the scholarship money, which was great. So we're starting to crack that a little bit, and people are starting to pay attention. Also, I think because of all the building in town, and there's going to be a price tag attached, so it's pretty important to pay attention to what's going on in the school district currently. I mean, it is all the time, but more so right now financially.
And I appreciate that they're online, but we have like 3 people that are tuning in, so.
Do you see
Thank you to whoever's there.
I might know one of them. Do you see the Director of Operations being able to help?
With communication,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, just having that extra person.
Even just that inroad to the
Creative.
high school population and having somebody with that dedicated time to get more of that messaging out, because that's where I got a lot of the scholarship traction, was reaching out to the high schools directly, being able to have those conversations, get the packets printed and dropped off, and so it's been better.
I was impressed with the high school choice thing and the programs that are offered to the kids between the 3 schools, and how they talked about some of the things, and trying to think back when I was in school and saying, geez, we were,
Have that.
they have a whole lot more opportunity today to help get them headed in the direction of a career path, or whatever they think that might be.
Absolutely.
And obviously it changes from time to time, but I absolutely was, and I've encouraged people to go on and watch that video to understand what these 3 high schools can provide for our kids.
I'm actually excited that we videotaped that night, because that was such great information, and now it's there. We can point people to it.
Well, and I think it also helps align when we say why the elementary school has the same number of kids but might not be meeting our needs, is because education has evolved and changed, and like just like it has at the high school, it has at the other levels too, and this is why we have to evolve and change with it.
And going back to the scholarship comment, I know that I personally put it on the counseling website for the high school, so at Oyster River. So embracing, I think when we think of those 3 high schools, is we're not just a add-on to the 3 high schools. It's not, and Barrington too. Embracing as part of their high school community. If we can get the other high schools, I'm not saying they don't now, I just don't know, but have it be very much and Barrington.
Until it starts being part of the fabric, right? It's hard to, like, the inroads I think we've made with Oyster River is because I get their newsletters. So they put me on their messaging as if I'm a parent, right? So it's just, if you have access, you can get the information out there. So I think it's those kinds of conversations around. It's not that people don't want to. It's just, it's new. It's another thing to think about. It's a new responsibility on your list. And until it becomes routine, when we started posting the new policies, once they're after a second read, when they're approved, we started the new practice of emailing them out to the staff, which has been amazing because they have noticed things, that inconsistencies in practice, right? But until it became a routine, I had to write it on my whiteboard with arrows and stars. And so I think having that additional person with that dedicated communication to say, okay, what can we do better and differently will help. But. All right, so given that we may not have another regularly scheduled meeting, I would request authorization to hire our remaining, well, we added one today, but our remaining positions. Let's starting tomorrow. We won't have anybody that quickly, but through that August 16th, which is when we will meet again. So if we have some late hires, we would bring them forward to that regular meeting.
So I would just ask the question, only because I don't know the process. So should we be including allowing you to accept resignations if you get any during this time? Does that make,
That's a
that make
great
sense?
question.
Does
We've
that make
never
sense?
done that.
Does it make sense what I'm
It
asking?
does make sense, so that, because we can't nominate someone if we haven't accepted
Yeah.
a resignation.
We have
Yeah,
never done
that's
an
never-
authorization to accept
I've
resignations
never seen one
before.
anywhere. That's interesting.
That, yeah,
Makes sense.
I would say
Well, my
yes.
thought,
That's a great.
I'd rather do that.
Hopefully, we're not
than-
getting any more
Right,
FYI
but-
staff.
No, I know.
But I'd rather do that than get a call, hey, we have to meet Tuesday
We need a
night."
special meeting. No, that's a great point. I mean, I think procedurally, it completely makes sense since I asked you to flip tonight's
Yeah.
agenda for that reason.
I mean, if you have some that are right before our regular board meeting on the
I'll just hold
30th,
them.
then we can do them then. But other than that, no, I don't want to, I would highly recommend we not slow down the process and let people go get other jobs other places. Because they're not going to hang
Appreciate it.
on the chance of not accepting a nomination are pretty slim, but no one's going to like totally hang their hat on that, so. Someone want to make that motion?
I would make a motion to authorize the superintendent to accept resignations or to hire for open positions from June 5th through August 16th, 2024.
Open
Second.
and anticipated.
Yes.
Because if we just say open, it's open as of this date, but we want to say anticipated too.
Yeah, any positions, I
Any
think.
positions, yeah.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye. All right, it's all about me tonight, apparently, and my talking. Sorry. So in my current contract, for this 23, I can't get the years messed up in my head. For the 23-24 year, I had an associate membership to New Hampshire Association of Special Education Administrators. I didn't want to say NHSAA for people who don't know what that is. So I'm only allowed to have an associate membership because I'm not an acting director, so it's a lower level. And really the reason so it's in my contract for this current year, but not for the next 2 years. So I'm asking the board to reconsider paying that membership. It was $290 for this year. I'm not sure if the rates are changing for next year or not. I don't want to misspeak. And the reason for that is I hold that certification. It allows me to have a reduced rate to attend those workshops, and then just allows me to continue that knowledge and expertise to be able to lend my support in the district when it's needed. So I would hate to lose that connection to my association. That association, I shouldn't say my, that association.
So you'd be looking for us to approve 2 years? to do
Unless
that.
you want to talk about it again next year, I'm looking for next year.
Well, I would like just to talk about it, because
Sure.
I want to make sure, like, I'm cautious that we're setting a precedent.
Mm-hmm.
And so we might have superintendents say, well, I want you to pay for my association to the Principals Association. Because we are paying,
Yep.
we pay your dues to the Superintendent's
Correct.
Association, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And we pay Katie's dues to NHASEA. So I just kind of want us to be thoughtful about what precedent we might be setting.
Mm-hmm.
It certainly made sense, you know, not that any of us had doubt in you or whatever, but we wanted to make sure that you were protected if, like, the interim thing didn't work and things
Absolutely.
like that.
Yep.
So, like, I'm okay with doing one more year, but then I think after that, it probably should be, if you want to have that membership, you have that membership, but not on the taxpayers' dollar, because we're paying your membership to the Superintendent's Association. But, you know, defer to the rest of the board about.
I mean, I appreciate the additional year. I will maintain it because it's important to me, because I want to maintain that certification, and I think financially, for $290 to get reduced workshop rates for the entire year makes sense. And I did have to step in last year to fulfill the role, not for nothing.
Exactly, yeah.
And you don't know when people are, you know, things are going to happen. Not to say anything's going to happen to Katie, but I maintain 7 different certifications, and I just would hate to not have the opportunity to, because they don't just offer special ed information, right? I would hate to not have the opportunity to maintain that and be able to, sometimes those certifications are needed at the table. So,
Yeah, well, I'll make a motion for it to renew it for the the 24-25 school year.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you all for that. High school survey results could not possibly be more clean and more clear. So clean and clear. I didn't print all of the comments. There weren't a lot of them. They were really focused in a couple of buckets. One around transportation, saying, please, please, please provide shorter routes for our high schoolers. And, I think
We wish we could.
I think everybody at this table would, be dancing in the streets if we could do that. It is not only a huge financial impact, but it also, we all know what the current state of affairs are in transportation drivers. Like, it would just be a challenge to do that. But anyway, as you can see, very consistent numbers percentage-wise, that people really value the choice that we have in town and for all three of the schools. And they value that we support transportation to all three of the high schools, albeit not as, streamlined as an Uber. There is an option and opportunity to get kiddos there. And, I know most New Hampshire districts do provide it, but we're not legally obligated to provide it, and it is a challenge in these hiring state of affairs.
Well, and I don't want to go back to where we're only transporting to high schools of record and leaving
Right.
one school out when we're trying to be equitable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And, not that everybody can afford a car and have parking, but I know the high schools have also made a really big effort to expand their parking so that we're not limited on that end, because that used to be an issue a handful of years ago, a big issue.
Oh, for sure.
And I just think people need to understand in the community that it's not because we don't, like I said, it's not because we don't want to. And then also that it's with all decisions and all opportunities like high school choice, there are positives and there are challenges, right? And I think that transportation, unfortunately, for getting the option to choose your school, which is a wonderful benefit, there is the possibility that either your child's going to have to be on a longer bus ride than normal, or you'll have to find a way to transport through carpool or whatnot. But you still get the benefit of choosing. So I think sometimes it's that discussion, which I know we have, but just saying it for the record. How will this information, since it was a hot topic all over everywhere, how will this information be communicated with the?
So we just created the summer happenings around the school district newsletter we had talked about a while back briefly, so that is going out tomorrow. It's lengthy. There's a lot that happens in a school district when you really look at it in June, July, and August. So I will put those survey results in the last regular newsletter of the year, which will go out that last week of school, the week of the 17th. And then I can certainly I can pull just the high school piece out, do a separate memo on it, and see if Connor can post it on the town side as
We
well.
can do that as an update too for the next time.
Yep, and then when I do, when I send the school newsletter out, usually it's just an email. I can do also a voicemail this time, telling everybody to have a great summer, and then also letting them know that those results are in there. Because if you don't sometimes point it out,
Yeah.
people are busy right now, and, they might be interested in it, but not know to look there for it.
Yeah.
So I can take those steps, and then we'll see where it goes.
That's great. Thank you.
All right? Sure.
Hey, speaking of transportation.
Speaking of transportation, well, since you got this packet, I think there's been 3 additional plans put into place. So don't even look at the letter that's in the packet, really, and it wasn't there for you to consider the messaging. It was just there as a means to say, basically, it's a moving target right now, and, you're obviously not going to get any additional drivers between now and June 18th. Every district that they serve is struggling, and, I called there myself to have some conversation, and then I felt terribly by the time I hung up the phone, because the bus company unfortunately has been hit with people who have ended up in the hospital and surgeries and sickness and medical needs, and so it has just been this variety of unfortunate perfect storm kind of things, and we just have to get to the last day of school. There are no drivers. So I really do want to say thank you to the families, because they again have stepped up when we need them to
She was really happy with me last Friday afternoon when I called and said, oh, by the way, you can only get to Berry River Road, and then they gotta turn around and go all the way around the Longshore Drive, and she goes, you're not making my Friday afternoon very
I was like,
nice.
you really want me to have to call the bus company? Come on.
Well, I have to say, being away and just like looking at Facebook and every day, this bus isn't running. This bus isn't running. It's like, oh my.
Usually it doesn't bother me, but I'm like, I gotta call her, but I don't wanna call her.
And I appreciated it. As much as I didn't want that call, I appreciate
I
it.
have to do this, but.
Yeah, it's been tough because they have come up with really creative solutions, but it's like, we've never put big kids and little kids on a bus together, so families needed to know, like, we're gonna get those high schoolers home, as many of them as we can, but there might be like 15 of them left on the bus when the littles get on, right? We're gonna get them all home eventually. And then we made requests that are backwards from what people's thinking usually is, but I asked that any high schooler who remains on the bus, when we have to go pick up the younger routes, that they actually sit in the front as opposed to the opposite where you usually put the big kids in the back. Since there was only going to be 2 or 3 of them, I would rather the drivers be able to monitor their conversations. 15, 16-year-old conversations are not 6, 7-year-old conversations. And that's not a criticism, that's just reality.
Were
So,
they really conversing or were they just on their phones?
I mean, true. I don't, but I'm not going to ride the bus route to find that out. So, you know, but again, it's important to thank our families for knowing that there's just nothing we can do about it, and they're stepping up, and kids are getting home and getting to school, so yay. All right, that brings us to our, we had quite a list of things that needed to be done, that have been done, that we've been hanging on to see where the bottom line budget lands, and so Joe's gonna run through that list with you, and then in addition to that, you have the function codes and where we are currently. It is without the warrant articles, however, so I'll speak to the second page once Joe goes through his list.
So we have had quite a few projects that we've been able to get done between the safety and security grant and the adequacy funds, and then also the operating budget. If you look here, there's the list that we have going on. We were able to take care of the ECLC roof and gutters up there, which was huge this winter. Worked
They
out.
look
No
Great.
more lake
No more-
ECMC.
And it looks
No more
beautiful.
icing.
It looks beautiful.
Yeah.
You did a great job.
Brian
on
was
it.
very excited this winter. He didn't have to get on the roof. We took care of the BMS lighting over there for the stage, for the play and everything, thanks to Mike. Mike helped us out with that tremendously. Our chemicals, we've had a bunch of stuff that we've taken care of as far as hazardous waste that we've had in the buildings. We've consolidated everything, worked together on that. All of that stuff is going away. So that's a good thing. BMS floor care, we wanted to get that done before the fiscal year starts next year, so we're gonna get that out of the way. The materials, we're redoing the new inlays over at BES, and we have 2 new walk-off mats going around the building at BMS. So that's the materials for that there. When we say replace the squirrel cage, that's the squirrel cage, the big air handle that we
That's
have.
not what you run in every day, try to keep the buildings
So I
going.
keep the electricity going.
Buildings going.
Can you just explain a little more what the squirrel cage is, just for people
So
online?
the squirrel cage, what that is part of the air handler that actually has the fins that moves the air through. We had a fan belt jump off and actually destroyed that whole cage. So we had to replace that, and that was on the supply side of air handler 1, which is the gymnasium one. So that's been taken care of. So the windows at BMS, it was brought to my attention last year that they will leak on certain times when the wind blows.
When it rains.
Last year, we had it a few times when the wind was coming out of the north and raining pretty heavily, and it actually started leaking also over at the Bulldog. So what that's going to end up entailing is, if this keeps happening, we're going to start losing our flooring.
We just
So-
redid.
So this year, I had Portland Glass come out, and that was an estimate for that there, so that was that. And then we do have 2 rooms up at the ECLC that, they're right next to the boiler room. The boiler room does run to keep the hot water warm, and that room is hot. We do have looking at putting too many splits in there due to students' needs.
We keep trying to manage the cooling needs with the littles that have medical needs in that building with floor models. Gratefully so, our preschool rooms are large, like they're beautiful, big spaces. You just can't cool them efficiently with the units that we have. And I don't think it's any surprise that our preschool need has increased drastically. So when we're looking at those medical temperature regulation, sensory, it just efficiency-wise, it doesn't make sense to run units that are old and not cooling the space, and we need a more permanent solution.
And I know that we have a lot of things going on, and we've already talked about there's gonna be a lot of things going on next year, but I certainly think that we as a district should start looking at the cost of getting the non-air conditioned buildings air conditioned, because you're gonna see as, and I know there's people gonna tell me that climate warming's not happening, but, we're getting hotter weather earlier in the spring, and it's lasting later into the fall, and so, I'm not necessarily saying it's something we gotta do tomorrow, but we should be putting that on the radar to get an idea of the cost to get the buildings that are non-air conditioned. Because if we're trying to do it inefficiently, it's just gonna keep costing us a lot more money. So, at some point, it may be better to say, look, we should do this, or whatever.
We were just
so.
having that
We're
conversation.
in the process of that right now.
And you're right, it's, we now have more like 2 or 3 months of a school year where there's some pretty toasty days. And, if you're on the first floor, it's not too bad. You get in the second floor of that middle school in certain wings when the sun's coming around, it gets a little
And
toasty.
it's tough. I mean, I don't like to work in the heat, and, you're asking a kid to sit there and learn in the heat, and
Well,
And
yeah.
not to say our medical needs they get older, right? They grow.
Right, right.
We need to still
They don't grow out
accommodate
of
for
them. That's a good point. They
They don't necessarily grow out of them.
don't grow out of their medical needs.
That's not changing.
Right.
Not usually.
probably my driveway tomorrow will be full of used air conditioners.
Probably.
get out of
Everyone's,
bed.
hey, there's a need. So when you.
Can I just ask Joe, a facilities guy?
Oh, yeah.
So what's the status of the BMS sign? Because, it just looks ratty with the pull-up thing. So where do we stand with that?
So that's on the summer's project list. That's
Okay.
the first thing, because if not, Garth is gonna probably hang me out to
Yeah,
dry
you're
somewhere.
lucky he's not here.
Oh, I was waiting for him to be here, because he would have asked about it. So ideally, what we want to do with that sign is, what we're looking at doing is putting another granite post on top of what is there, and then moving the sign up that we have now currently, and then actually lighting down below what we have out here, out at BES. And then that other sign, if nobody wants it, BYA was looking to acquire it for
However,
their,
ECLC does not have any signage.
Do they have a place they can put it?
would have to modify
Because
that
isn't it-
sign.
Yeah, we'd have to look at the location, but I wanted to look at location for ECLC before we give it away. Sorry, BYA.
Buy 2 packages of the letters. Just gonna say that right now. 1 package is never enough. They say it is, and they are expensive, but I firmly will, it will save your team time as they change those letters to just have the
Absolutely.
extra letters. So I support the extra letter package.
Before you even ask.
I went through that with the BES side, so there you
Or
go.
Terry.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're members.
Yes,
That's what I'm
yeah,
saying.
sign.
I support the purchase of the 2 of those letter packages.
So that is the plan, with going with a bluestone or granite top on top of it, and then. have
So
it-
July 3rd, it'll be up?
Yep. We'll try our best.
I'm just trying to ask Garth's questions.
Yeah.
Jill, Garth wouldn't have given you all the way to July 3rd, right?
No, he wants it done last week.
Like, end of June
Yeah,
project, current
that's
funds, yeah.
July 1st.
Oh my gosh. So the second page of that is just an overview of where we stand right now. So that the 226 is taking, bottom line, takes away the facilities stuff, but it's before we fulfill the 200,000 for warrants. But don't get nervous, because we have not unencumbered a couple of bigger pockets yet of funds that are encumbered. We all know, given our transportation conversation, there'll be some funds coming back from that because we've been down drivers and more so lately. And then we have some student service pockets of money out in high schools that we just wait till that last bill before we release those funds back. There's also a little bit of a differential between that extra, when they redid the adequacy fund formula way back in the fall. There's a little bit of leeway there that will come back into the bottom line, as well as we know, there's always those revenues that reconcile at the end, and we're always like pleasantly surprised that all of a sudden we thought we were down to $10,000 and then we have, $200,000 to $400,000, right? So I'm not. Vicky's sleeping at night. She's not stressed.
Okay,
When
good.
Vicky's stressed,
Vicky's sleeping, that's good.
when Vicky's sleeping, things are good. So she created this and did not nervously hand it to me. She happily handed it to me. So I think in the next few weeks, we'll see that bottom line grow as we always expect when things reconcile at the end. So I feel really good about where we're going to land. We've been able to do some extra projects, some unanticipated facility needs, which happen with older buildings. But that's where we stand, if people feel good about those choices.
So you feel confident we'll be able to fill, both warrant articles, and you don't need us to vote and prioritize
Nope.
if there's not enough? Okay,
But we took off stuff that I felt was cutting it too close.
okay.
And we will still probably have that range that we typically send back to the taxpayers at the end. Usually it ranges anywhere from 150 to 600,000, which I know sounds huge, people, but do the math. It's a tidy percentage on that budget. It's really tight. So, but we feel good about
I just
that.
wanted to go back, just for the people who might be watching this online, to, I know Joe glossed over it, but it's important for the taxpayers to understand that the school district actually made the offer to the town that if they had any chemicals and stuff that needed to be taken care of, to get it together, and the school put it all in as one thing rather than the town having to do something separate. So that was certainly a benefit to the taxpayers, and the fact that the town didn't have to contract it out and have it done as well. So thank you for
And
that.
it got old, dangerous chemicals out of our town. It disposed of properly in one fell swoop, which was nice.
When they said we could do that, there was stuff in the fire station that got there before I did, and that was in a box before. I said, before he gets a chance to change his mind.
Get rid of that.
Get that stuff out of here.
And it worked out well the way that those guys come in and prioritize everything. These guys are actual chemists that come in and they have flammable fire hazard here, they have hazardous waste here, the non-hazardous, and it's just clean. It's just a good way to do it.
It's always best to trust the professionals with hazardous waste.
It is.
We don't need anybody
suits.
getting hurt or workers' comp or any issues with that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else, Deanna? All right, then we are up to our second opportunity for public comment. Dan, you have anything? You're the only public member here. All right. Online, raise your hand. You have about 10 seconds. No, just kidding. But I don't see any hands. Do you? All right, moving on. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Any discussion?
I don't want to.
All right, all in favor? Aye. All right, thank you, everybody. We'll see you in July.
I'm going to take over.